Okay, you have got to hear this story. We're going back to the 1980s, to this really unique kindergarten in Japan, where an experiment happened that honestly feels more relevant now than ever. And it all kicked off with something that sounds like it's straight out of a movie, a message from outer space that would change how everyone thought about kids, dirt, and technology. So meet Pippi. Pippi's an alien, and he was the spark for this incredible year-long educational adventure. It's a story that beautifully weaves together a child's imagination, the real, messy, natural world, and a strange new piece of technology.
But before we can even get to the mud and the computer, you've got to understand the school's whole philosophy. Because this was not your average kindergarten, not at all. It was built around one really powerful, interactive idea.
They called it a dialogue with nature. Now, this wasn't just about, having a pretty garden outside. The whole point was that for kids to really learn, they needed to be able to change their environment. And then the environment would present new puzzles and new discoveries back to them. It's this amazing feedback loop, right? The kids shape their world and their world shapes them. That's the secret sauce.
And this map just lays it all out. This isn't just a drawing, it's basically a blueprint for adventure. You can see all the key ingredients right there. A dirt mountain, a spot for mud pool. The whole place was designed for kids to just go out and discover things on their own.
So, how does a simple pile of dirt turn into a classroom? Well, this is where the kids totally took charge and literally created their own world from the ground up.
And the process was just so simple and so brilliant. The kids would scramble up that dirt mountain, right, which gives them a whole new perspective. Then they pour water from the top and watch it carve out little rivers and valleys in the dirt. And of course, all that water pools at the bottom, and before you know it, they've got this awesome giant mud pool. And it was theirs. They were so proud, they even named it the Mud Plaza.
And this is where you really see the magic happening. The kids started making these mud onigiri, like little mud rice balls. They'd leave them out, and after a few days, they noticed the soft mud had turned rock hard from the sun. I mean, think about it. That's a basic lesson in material science, and they figured it out completely through their own play.
Okay, so this is where the story gets really interesting. The kids' very real, very muddy playtime in their garden starts to blend with their ideas about Pippi's world, way up there in the sky.
The rainy season hits, and suddenly there are all these new questions. Where does rain even come from? Who makes it? And does their alien friend Pippi, who lives up in space, does he know the answer? You can see their little minds just spinning, connecting what they see in the real world with this whole imaginative universe they're building. And then, boom, the big idea. One of the kids says, hey, let's turn our whole garden into the land of thunder. The place above the clouds where the rain is made. And just like that, the real world and the fantasy world were about to become one and the same.
And they didn't just pretend. They went all in. They made thunder masks and cool striped pants. They set up little shops that sold juice made from crushed up petunia flowers. The regular old playground stuff got these epic new names, like the Cloud Bridge and the Cloud Car. And their mud plaza? That was now the official, heavily guarded reservoir where all the rain for the world was made.
So right in the middle of all this creative, muddy chaos, another message comes from Pippi. But this time, it's something that would change their world even more than the mud did. It was a new kind of toy. A computer. Now remember, this is the 1980s. For these kids, this thing was as alien as Pippi himself. The excitement was just off the charts, but it instantly turned into total chaos. Every single kid bum-rushed the machine, all of them trying to mash the keys at once. Nobody could figure anything out because no one could even get a clean shot at it. So what happens next is, for me, the most amazing part of this whole story. The teachers, they did nothing. They didn't step in, they didn't make a schedule, they just trusted the kids to sort it out themselves. Their first try at a solution was just pure spatial logic. Okay, the problem is too many hands on the keyboard, so let's divide the keyboard. You take this side, I'll take that side. It's a totally rational first attempt to bring some order to the chaos. But that didn't really work. Dividing the space wasn't enough, because they were still all pressing keys at the same time. They couldn't figure out cause and effect. So they had to get smarter. They came up with a new, more abstract idea, order. They realized they needed to take turns. Taking turns was a huge breakthrough, but it created a whole new problem. What's a fair turn? How long does one person get? So their next rule was an attempt to legislate that.
They decided to add a time limit. You count to 10, and then it's the next person's turn. I mean, think about that. They're basically inventing time-based laws to create fairness.
But even that wasn't perfect. Counting to 10 was usually way too short to actually get anything done in the game. So they made their most sophisticated jump-in logic yet. They moved from a system based on time to a system based on tasks. The final rule was, you get your turn until you finish one thing in the game. I mean, for 5-year-olds, that is an absolutely incredible piece of social and logical problem solving. And here is the most important part. This entire social contract, this whole system of government, basically, was created by a bunch of 5-year-olds with zero adult help. The teachers stood back on purpose. They trusted that the kids' deep desire to play and solve the puzzle would be a strong enough motivation for them to figure it out. And they were right. Now, you might be thinking, okay, this is a story about kids getting sucked into a screen. But the most powerful thing that happened was how this new digital world actually pushed them right back into the real one. So in one of the games Pippi sent them, the character on the screen was in a field and his corn plants were all wilting and dying. The kids were really into the game and they noticed this detail on the screen. They could see the virtual plants were in big trouble. And this is the magic moment. Seeing that digital corn wilting on the screen triggered a real-world connection in their brains. The kids suddenly got worried about their corn, the real plants they were growing in their own garden. And they all immediately ran outside to check on them and give them water. You see, the computer didn't replace their reality. It actually made it richer. It wasn't an escape from the mud and the petunia juice. It was a bridge back to it. It was a new lens that connected their digital fun directly to their physical world. And that just leaves us with this huge question for today, doesn't it? We spend so much time worrying about screens pulling us away from the real world. But what can we learn from Pippi, a mud puddle, and a group of 5-year-old rule makers about how technology, when we use it with a little imagination and trust, could actually become the very thing that leads us back?